Welcome back. And as we mentioned, our first conversation for today is talking about the latest anti-crime strategy being implemented by the Belize Police Department. And joining us on set to give us all the details about this strategy, we have ACP Edward Broaster, who is the Operations Commander for the Belize Police Department. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Okay. So I want to jump right in to understand the details as to what this latest strategy coming out of the department entails.
Well, the policing strategy 2018-2020 for the department is all about enhancing citizen security, to enhance the police professional delivering of service, to ensure that we protect witnesses when it comes to major crimes in Belize, and also to look at investigating and prosecuting the gangs and their supporters across the country.
Now this has become, I believe in recent years, it may be the third official strategy that was launched in being able to get a handle on the crime situation. And I have a real fundamental question in being able to understand what assessments are being made to figure out why previous strategies have not worked and why you feel that this latest strategy will be effective.
Well, it's not that previous strategies did not work. When, as a police department, the administrator of the police department, being that of the commissioner of police, would sit with the top commanders and discuss and review the previous strategy to come up with a more suitable strategy to deal with the crime situation current as we speak. And we look at the way we effect operations, the way the police conduct itself in terms of delivering services, and the statistics for the crime and the crime areas that we need to address across the country.
When you look at any strategy, past, present, and perhaps if you're forward thinking, future strategies, from the outside looking in, it would seem as though one of or two recurrent concerns are the issues of gang-related offenses and drug trafficking or drug movement, if I may. If I, as a civilian, were to look back at, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago, you had these issues that the police department was grappling with then. Some would argue that it probably just has gotten worse in terms of the way the gangs are organized amongst themselves or within itself, and the kind of activities that they involve in, either for profit or to exact revenge or turf, whatever the issues may be. It would seem as if though those two issues remain at the heart of any of the strategies that you guys have formulated over the years. If you were to assess, and I know that strategies in this case are very dynamic, you go from one strategy 2 years ago to this one, etc. But if you were to assess where the department has improved in its crime fighting strategies as it regards to gangs and drugs, where would you stand?
Well, I would tell you that the department has done its utmost best to deal with the gang phenomenon in Belize. If you were to recall, in 1995, it was the police that was instrumental in forging the first gang truce, which lasted for 3 years. Unfortunately, when government changed at that time, the issue of dealing with gangs changed. So there was a lapse between 98 and 2008 as it relates to gangs. Nobody was paying attention to gangs. The gangs then transitioned between that period from just dealing with drugs and turf to assassination of witnesses and other individuals and so forth. Again, we had another period where I worked with the Conscious Youth Development Program in dealing with conflict mediation. We try to get them in school, we try to get them jobs and stuff like that. Then you have the period where Mr. Chester Williams dealt with the gangs as well, deal with conflict mediation and sporting programs and other mentoring activity. And now you see there's an external influence with the gangs locally in Belize. And this is by no means short strategies by the police department. The phenomena of crime goes beyond the police department. Everybody looks at the police to solve the problem, and the problem does not lie within the police. We have to look at family structure. We have to look at children having children. We have to, as a society, look at our children that are on the streets daily. And as a police department, we can only do so much. As a matter of fact, for the last 2 weeks, we've been discussing starting to deal with children on the street during the day and night. There are too many children on the street, and these children don't have no parental control, as it would obviously seem. And we need to steer them to either the truant department or get the parents involved so that we do not have this cycle of violence that continues to plague us as a society.
Now, there was a curfew enacted a few years ago.
Right.
And I think as an outsider looking in, we have heard so many different approaches being taken by the police department. And none of them seem to really be able to address whatever it is that is causing the surge of crime or the waves of crime that we see within the country, violent crime specifically. We're in a particular state, and I can venture to say that people feel a lot less secure. And something has to be done. And yes, we primarily look at the police department, even though we do individually have a role to play as well. What about this latest crime strategy makes you feel that, or makes the department feel that you will actually be able to have tangible results in bringing back the sense of security that citizens have in this country?
Well, if you look at it, the crime strategy addresses the issue of gangs specifically. And we're proposing to have offenses or laws enact to make it an offense for gang members to be gathered in one particular property, etc. Oftentimes you hear a group of young men were socializing in a yard when a lone gunman or two gunmen came from out of nowhere and shoot them up. So that's one aspect of it. Also, laws to prevent individuals from harboring gang members in their premises. As well, the Commissioner of Police has formulated a task force to look at gangs, the structure, their assets that they have gotten illegally, and those individuals who financially provide support to the gangs. So we are going after the gangs in an investigative way for long term to deal with that situation rather than just be doing repression or...
And you mentioned that word, and I just want to get in here because we also have separate units within the department.
Right.
We have the gang suppression unit that has been put in place that is well known for a more militant approach in engaging with civilians. Will there be any change in strategy as to what the gang suppression unit does? If you have a particular strategy focusing solely on gang, you also have a unit that is focusing solely on gangs. And if we are identifying gangs as a part of the problem, can't we say that the gang suppression unit has been ineffective?
I wouldn't say that they have been ineffective. What I will tell you that in dealing with gangs, there cannot be solely law enforcement, strong tactics to deal with gangs. there has to be a social component
Yeah.
alongside that law enforcement strategy.
Which is
In
why you
the-
have community policing and great
But
and all these
but it
other.
has
But
to
beyond
be,
that,
but it has to
what
be
about
beyond,
human development?
Yeah.
But it has to be beyond policing, because I can tell you from my previous years working on the streets, dealing with the gangs. We arrest them, they go to prison, they come back out, they do the same thing. You arrest them, you catch them,
It's
they go to
cyclical.
prison, they come back out. Their children grow up and become
The same thing.
just as them. So there has to be that social component that goes in and deal with the root causes, and that is where we're lacking. We need to have organizations that are chartered to deal with situations socially, to go in there. And I think that as a country, we do not look at the kids from 0 to 2, because the kids from 0 to 2 are born into some of these neighborhoods. What they get to eat: ramen noodles. Go buy me a pung of milk from the shop that you would not normally give to a child. So that child brain does not develop properly. And growing up in that environment, everybody is asking why they're so ruthless and why they are so this and why they are so that. And the problem is right there in front of us, and we're not addressing it.
It goes back to nurture. Let me backpedal a bit, because you mentioned two things that automatically struck me, and neither of us here are of legal mind, but one would argue that sometimes common sense trumps what the laws may dictate. You mentioned earlier that you're looking to formulate legislation where you will be allowed, in a sense, to go against people who are associating or socializing in a specific area. I think as a civilian, perhaps one would think, okay, well, what about my right to privacy if that is the case? If I am at home and I am socializing with my friends, do I not have that right to say I can invite this one, that one, and the other, regardless of color, creed, race, in this case, gang affiliation?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be open for argument? That is one. Secondly, when you look at the issue of the financing of these criminal organizations, you have some very prominent members of society who, for whatever reason, associate with these individuals enough to provide seed money for crime and that sort of a thing. How do you respond to that?
To your first question, everybody has rights. Freedom of movement, freedom of association, what have you. But when it comes to public safety, that trumps some of those rights. And we have looked at the Constitution in proposing what we propose in the interest of public safety. Everybody always blame the police and say the police knows who the gang members are and we're not doing anything and so forth. We cannot continuously to have gang members hanging in a private premises where the police has no powers to disperse them or deal with them. And you have innocent citizen that lives around getting shot, 8-year-old lying in bed, bullet penetrate their homes, getting shot. Innocent people and bystanders around getting shot as well, aside from themselves. And this is not only for the public safety, it's also for their own personal safety. So that is with that. As it pertains to the financial supporters, yes, there are prominent people in society that finances these gangs, and hence the reason why we want to put a stop to it. And there are those who have made their money illegally, who are deemed criminal, who society look now to as businessmen.
Yeah.
That sends a wrong message to our young people.
Let me bring you back to the gathering, because I can see where some challenges are going to lie with this. how will you enter? And the legislation is what, in draft stage? Have you already
The
completed?
legislation has already been drafted, and it's at cabinet for them
Okay.
to table to.
The House.
Intelligence gathering is definitely going to be the most important factor in
Of
this.
course.
Identifying that a gathering of persons in one particular yard has a different purpose than, let's say, a gathering of persons in Isane's yard, for example.
Exactly.
And how will you be able to distinguish whether or not people are getting together for just the
Socializing.
yeah, just the socialize?
Or planning criminal activity.
Precisely.
How do you separate
How
the two?
are you going to, that is very murky waters that
That's
you'd be
not-
entering into.
That is not murky waters.
A barbecue versus
That's-
we're conspiring.
Listen, that's not
You can conspire over barbecue.
exactly, but that's not murky waters for the
Uh-huh.
police.
Uh-huh.
The police know who the gang members are, and we know where they congregate, and how they congregate, and for what they congregate. So that's not no murky waters. That's not a challenge for the police.
Have you had, I mean, obviously in putting together the draft, you have your own legal minds, but there are very obvious human rights infractions that may come along with stepping into somebody's property
Believe you me.
and assuming that they're
Like I said before,
conspiring.
we examine the rights of individual, and we bore that in mind when we were making the proposed legislation.
How sound is this crime fighting strategy outside of just focusing on gangs and the intelligence on gang activity and what have you? When you
Well-
look at what is before us,
Well,
How sound
we
is
have
that?
we have the Anonymity Act, where it will enable us to protect the identity of witnesses. The cases that we are losing in the courts are no fault of the police department, as you all would be aware. It's the fact that witnesses are afraid to testify. Witnesses have been killed in the past, and so forth. So we have to put something in place to protect witnesses that witness violent crimes, and ensure that they go to court and we serve justice on those who perpetrate these crimes. So that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the surveillance camera system that the commissioner currently is putting into effect. And we have installed over, I believe, 16 plus 12,
38.
16 plus 12, yeah, 38 cameras so far. And there will be more that will be placed across the city and across the country to ensure that we can have a wider coverage of policing the area as well. Also, we're looking at, well, the Commissioner of Police has already allocated more officers for the Professional Standards Branch. And the Professional Standards Branch is going to be tasked with the daunting work of cleaning house. Not only Professional Standards Branch, but all of us. We want to clean house in terms of cops who are
Considered
corrupt,
rogue. Yeah.
continuously to do misconduct out there, and also to deliver a more professional service to the public. You will find that when you walk into a police station, now you will be greeted by a supervisor who will then assign an officer to you to take your report and what have you. And you must never leave the station without a URN number for your case. And that officer should provide you with a card. Those are some of the things that we are looking at getting into place to ensure that we build the confidence of the public in the police, and the public then can peacefully and safely, securely do their part in reporting crime.
Let's talk about the issue that has been of concern in the past week. And in fact, I know the reporters posed a question to Deputy Prime Minister Faber, and he said they'll discuss it in cabinet. And that is the perception that there is some sort of profiling taking place in stop and searches in Belize. And most importantly, that there is information, personal information being acquired in name, several other pieces of information, and also photographs. Tell us about how this fits into your strategy and what the purpose is of obtaining this information from individuals.
First of all, I must say, there's no profiling happening in Belize as it pertains to the Belize Police Department. When a police officer stops an individual, the officer normally gets the name of the individual and its particulars so that that record can be placed in after action report for the supervisor to know what work was done by the police officer out there in the street. Body cam.
So there is a report made at the end of the day by each police officer as to who they stopped and searched.
Right. Body cam, we're looking at purchasing body cam to put on our officers to protect our officers as well as to protect the public from police misconduct and unprofessionalism of police officers. So I see no issue with the fact that the police will be recording the public in a public way.
I get the impression that this attracts a mountain of legal challenges just by gathering this kind of information and holding it against people who are not convicted of any crime or what have you.
There has to be some profiling that takes place. Let me just say this.
Right now,
you do not just stop and search any random person on the street.
Listen.
There has to be some kind of guideline. What is the guideline that is being used?
There's no
guideline. And how do you ensure that officers are doing so? The
guideline that is used by police officer is when they see an individual acting suspicious or they believe that the person may have a weapon on them, that gives them justifiable reason to stop the individual and search the individual.
But doesn't it stop there? Because if you stop and search, you find nothing, right? Then isn't it the end of it right there? If I'm walking down Mahogany Street for argument's sake, right? I'm sagging my pants, I have braids, my earring, tattoo up, everything, but I don't have anything on my person. No weapon, no ammunition, no drugs, nothing that says, you know what, this person is hot, so to speak, right? So they pull me over and they search me, find nothing on me. Does it warrant my picture being taken? Especially in a case where I have a clean record, I just appear to be, how do I say, fit a certain description, if I may.
Listen, the public has always been, and not only the public, I think even the police officers will have an issue with this. But it should not be an issue because this is for the protection of the police as well as for the public. And it is similar to what will be put in place in the near future as in terms of body cam. The camera will be taking video of everybody, including the person that is being searched in the police action, and those will be stored for probably a period of 8. I don't know the time frame at this time, so that in the event that individual come and makes a report to the police to say that I was stopped and the police did me A, B, C, and D, we can go to the record and look and see, okay, did it occur or did it not occur?
I'll play devil's advocate here only to prove a point, but respectfully, it is different when an individual comes in and files a complaint of police brutality or what may be, versus you have this individual's picture, you have his age, his address, his height, you know which neighborhood this person comes from. And when you use that information to single out that individual, that then becomes profiling. You can't tell me, okay, because them come beat me up, I'm going to lodge a complaint and then you can review the body cam. It's different than if I'm looking at information that says, you know what, this person at Fanjal Street, see the face there, we see her, we stop and search her because we figure you're up to something. That is profiling.
You're right if we use information to target an individual. All right?
And the organization as it stands is not without its flaws because we're dealing with human beings.
Right.
Right?
But picture or no picture, we know who the gang members are. And we must target them to ensure that we protect the ordinary citizens.
Now, you spoke of the cleaning house, and this is the fundamental issue here, because I think the good cops in the department will not misuse some of the structures that you're putting in place. But what we do know is that there are some officers whose discretion is questionable.
I agree with that.
To say the least.
How do you ensure that those questionable officers will not use these mechanisms to unfairly target specific persons?
Look, last week, for the first time, we put together a justifiable use of force policy for the police department. Myself and Bart Jones and Chester Williams and Mr. Andrew Smith and Kufa. We put together a policy in terms of that. And we will be putting together other policies to guide our police officers, standing operating procedures, to guide our police officers to ensure that they deliver professional service. Anyone that deviates from delivering professional services to the public will be dealt with. And we make no bones about that.
All right, well, we're running out of time, and I really want to give you the opportunity. There is a very, when we talk about the situation of crime in the country, and if we talk about the numerous strategies that have been attempted, we need to tell the public something that makes them feel that this particular route, this 2-year plan that is now in place, will be the difference in being able to, one, have people build back a trust in the Belize Police Department, and 2, return us to a sense of security within our own communities. And I want to give you the opportunity to kind of say that to the public now.
Well, the strategy will address, like I said, enhancing public security. The issue and the task force that we have put together of well-experienced investigators will definitely target the gangs, and we hope that this year we will have the gang murders and gang violence reduced significantly. We also have the intervention continuously going with the CYDP and Mr. Chester Williams and other police officers. Ms. Magdaleno has implemented a program in Belize City called CHARM, Changing Hearts and Renewing Minds, where she has assigned a senior officer for each sector to go into the community, talk to the public, find out how we can best serve them and so forth. So there's a number of strategies that have not been expressed and would not be able to express in this time frame that will see the reduction in violent crime. While other crime has been done, murder has been the one that has been plaguing us in Belize. And this year we seek to try and reverse that trend.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in and taking the time. Of course, as you pointed out, it has been limited, but we appreciate you coming to tell us more about it.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by attorney at law Audrey Matura to talk about the law on abuse in relationships. So stay tuned.